We're here with Emerald Robinson of One American News, and we interviewed our colleague, Tommy Laurel. Lauren or Loren.
She was with us a few years ago.
I know.
Actually don't know Tommy, but
Uh-huh.
I know of course I know her.
So maybe we'll do it on the same subject we interviewed her. I think that was redistribution of wealth. Do you think the government should redistribute its citizens' wealth?
Absolutely not.
And do you think that foreign aid is redistribution of wealth?
Yes. In a certain sense, yes.
So we shouldn't be doing the foreign aid, right?
There's sometimes we do have to help out. There are places where our humanity insists that we help out. But I think that we have way too much foreign aid going out, and especially to countries who don't appreciate us very much and don't care that we've provided so much for them. It's like biting the hand that feeds you. So I think that, President Trump has reevaluated a lot of that humanitarian aid, and we're not necessarily going to be blowing out like we've been doing, and I think that's a good thing.
So shouldn't charity be voluntary by the individual instead of the state forcing citizens to pay taxes and then give the money to some country that they think should receive it?
Well, again, I don't usually speak on what I think, but I do think there's definitely a case to be made for that. I mean, I'm part of a huge mega church, and we give a lot to foreign programs, especially missions, and do a lot within the church that's outside of the government that provides a lot of the services that the government say that they're doing with our taxes. And I think that they probably most often do a better job than the government does. It's more efficient, and people really see more help directly from those dollars. So more of that money actually goes to helping them. And I think programs like that are very effective. So I personally think that's a great way to go about giving foreign aid. But now I do understand how some say we're a very wealthy country, and there are some other people we have to look after around the world. I think we've done a lot of it, whereas we should maybe have done some of it.
I think you make an excellent point. First of all, your church is probably more effective in the way they distribute the funds, because it's their funds and their constituent funds, and they have a clearer appreciation of who deserves the charity and why. So I agree with you. Also, the church doesn't force anybody to give this. It's totally voluntary, right?
No, that's true. I mean, we give out of our own will, and the fact that, we're moved to help people, and we personally feel that God calls on us to help people, and that's part of our mission, and we want to do it. But yeah, no, they don't force us to, or, they tell us what is available for us to give to. They don't even make a strong appeal for us to necessarily give. They tell us what's available, and then, we give as we see fit.
But the government does force the taxpayers to give the money. That's the big difference between the church and the government. That's why I dwelled on this point a little bit, don't you think? The government forces the taxpayers, whether they agree to give this money to Uganda or Nigeria or wherever Syria or Kuwait or wherever, they force taxpayers that would prefer not to give to that country. Maybe they wanted to give somewhere else.
That's true, and unfortunately, I mean, if it was set up in a way that we could vote on everything, and we knew, I mean, yes, our vote counts when we vote for politicians that we hope will represent our values and what we want to see happen with our taxpayer dollars. But as you know, that doesn't always happen the way that we want it to. But yes, it would be better if we could have more control over, as an individual taxpayer, where our money was going and give to what we wanted to give to, but unfortunately that isn't the way that it is. And I do think, though, that in this administration you are seeing some changes in that. Whereas for the last 8 years, we've given out and given out and given out to countries that, again, just don't.
America first, right?
And we are seeing that, and it's seen as a dirty term, in the mainstream media. They promote it as a racist. But just like Marianne Le Pen said today in her talk, she's like, I expect France to put itself first. I expect Britain to look after its citizens first before the other countries in the EU, but that's just not how that European Union necessarily works.
That's what Trump said, right? He said each country should look out for its own interests.
And we don't think that's bad of you to do so. But again, I don't always say that I know the best, or that's how I know the cases for both ways of doing it. It's just I have personally spent some time in former Soviet bloc countries, and hearing from people who lived under that kind of redistribution of wealth, that kind of communist rule, they are very free enterprise. They are very pro-capitalism because they know how easy it is to slide down that slope of redistribution to where nobody has anything but that elect party few.
Excellent point. So once the government starts doing a little redistribution here, then it does a little bit more there, then it starts to give money to their special interest groups and their constituencies, and finally you end up with the Democratic Party.
I won't say anything about that. But there are many who make that case, yes.
Okay. Well, is Medicaid redistribution of wealth?
Yes, according to a lot of economist friends that I have, they say that it is. Of course, we all agree that we have to help those who are not functionally able to help themselves. And I do think that's true. I see where you're going with it, where there's the case of, does it fall onto voluntary organizations to do so, or does it fall onto the state? And I, as a person who does have a bleeding heart, I do think it's hard to say that we as citizens don't take care of the poorest among us or the most disabled among us. But, I can see that case could be made.
Right, so that's where it starts, right? We have pity for somebody that can't take care of themselves well, and then once you get the government gets its foot in the door on that issue with the baby or the grandmother, then it goes crazy, and it's redistributing to the farmers, to the corporations, to the lawyers, to the special energy projects and this and that, and so it never ends. And then ultimately you end up with communism, right? And then there's no more money, other people's money to redistribute, and you go down the tubes, right?
It's just the fact that it's a lot of the communist countries, there's some money there, but there's nothing to spend it on because of the centralization of all the industry, and they just don't perform efficiently.
Right. So, but just to make it clear, Medicaid is redistribution of wealth, right?
I mean, technically, yes.
So because we tax American citizens, one group, in order to give the money to another, free goods and services to another group, that's redistribution of wealth.
Redistribution of wealth. The question is that necessary to do so?
Yeah. But you initially said you were against redistribution of wealth.
There you go, trapping me in what I say. I'm not a political commentator. I'm not a person that sits and gives my opinion. Like I said, I can see that the case is made for, each way I can see where the cases are made, but I think that I can say that I do think we've been very far in one direction, and that it does not necessarily perform efficiently, and that we do need to reevaluate the way that we do things and how we spend our money. Because as you know, we're in deep debt, and I have a son, and I care about in 30 years when he's looking at raising his family, that he's in a country that he can do so because there's capital there to do it, and he's not, in a country that's bankrupt and having to take everything from its citizens to try to stay afloat.
So we're actually giving away the money that the Chinese lent to us.
It's not even technically our money sometimes, that's true.
Anyway, I want to appreciate this great interview and your willingness and good-heartedness and friendly attitude towards my trap questions.
Yes, you're a tricky one. I'm usually doing the question asking, not the question answering.
Well, you can interview me. I'm game. If you want to interview me, I think it's totally fair. And you can ask as many trap questions as you want.
Sure.
I'm okay with it. Anything for the truth. Anything for the truth. And that's all we want and all we care about, both you and me, I think.
Well, it's very nice to talk to you.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Nice to meet you.
Let me.